I've mentioned before that Phase 5 of the MCU doesn't look too promising for Disney Marvel. Already, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was the first box office failure for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has done reasonably well, but according to the numbers at Box Office Mojo, it hasn't quite made as much money as Guardians 2, and keep in mind that Guardians 3 cost more money to make. The road ahead for the MCU, at the cinema at least, doesn't look too promising in my view. The Marvels looks abysmal. I can see that being a huge disaster. How did that get greenlit? I look at the trailer for that film and I see something that reminds me of that truly horrific Charlie's Angels film from 2019. Oof. There's something I thought had been erased from my memory by now. Captain America: New World Order is due out in May of 2024. That's the first Captain America film without Chris Evans in the lead role. That now falls to Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, formerly Falcon. The Thunderbolts are a kind of second-tier Avengers without any real standout characters. Some people have high hopes for the Blade reboot, due out in September of 2024, but given Disney's woeful mismanagement of Star Wars and most recently the MCU, I can't understand why anyone would be optimistic for that movie. Add to that the negativity surrounding Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and the very middling early reviews, and it's not looking quite so good for the House of Mouse. Ultimately, Disney has been seriously losing the room lately in terms of audience sentiment, as the public are fed up of seeing classic properties, characters, iconic stories being turned into vehicles to push the message. Now, there has been some allegations of racist review bombing for The Little Mermaid on review aggregator sites, but I think this is merely a genuine audience backlash against the race swapping of the main character of Ariel, which has been a trend with Hollywood films and people are growing very tired of it. If you want more diversity on screen, introduce new characters. Stop taking existing ones that were always white and changing them to boost your ESG score. Now, on the subject of audience reactions, on Rotten Tomatoes, The Little Mermaid stands at 67% for critic reviews, which isn't great, and the audience score is at 94%. But that's the verified audience score. If you click on All Audience, it's 57%. To me, it looks like it's all ultimately about optics. If most people casually check out the Rotten Tomatoes score for Little Mermaid, they'll see audience score of 94% and think, cool, that's a super high score, must be a great film. But a couple of more clicks and you get a very different story. Ultimately, the reality of The Little Mermaid's box office performance, or underperformance, internationally at least, cannot be quite so easily disguised. This article is from Deadline, dated May 31st. Little Mermaid swimming against strong tides at overseas box office, leaving break-even in question. In a rare situation for a Disney tentpole, particularly a live-action title based on a treasured classic animated musical, The Little Mermaid looks to bank more at the domestic box office, ultimately, than overseas, with $300 million to $350 million US-Canada, to $260 million abroad. At that level, per finance sources, off a reported $250 million production cost and $140 million global marketing spend, The Little Mermaid could very well break even. However, anything in the low $400 million global threshold, and this fish is apt to be sinking to a loss of around $20 million. Not a huge disappointment, but a disappointment nonetheless, one film finance insider told Deadline. Given the blockbuster streak often associated with Disney, the studio's summer slate remains in a precarious position after it boldly world premiered two major titles in Cannes to lackluster reviews: Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, 49% Rotten Tomatoes, and Pixar's Elemental, 58% rotten, $40 million projected US opening. The article goes on to compare Little Mermaid's box office performance with another of Disney's live-action adaptations of a popular cartoon, Aladdin, which of course came out in 2019, also on a Memorial Day weekend in the United States. It says that Will Smith pick cleared $1.05 billion worldwide, and 66% of that gross generated abroad, which also counted $53.4 million from China. Now, by comparison, Little Mermaid is doing nowhere near as much business in China than Aladdin did. Little Mermaid's China ticket sales were non-existent with a $2.5 million start. Given the quick burn of US titles in the PRC, some believe that the Rob Marshall-directed musical may not even get to a double-digit final gross there. I expect in the next few years a great pivot away from the current agenda-driven casting choices of studios like Disney, and an inevitable backtracking by Hollywood, as wokeness will inevitably bottom out in due course, and I think that time is coming sooner than we might realize. Get woke, go broke was a sentiment that was never actually going to happen so long as financial investors like BlackRock are ponying up the money, but Hollywood's current direction has become intolerable to many among the general audience public, and it's very much worn out its welcome. I'm just wondering if the new Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny film is going to be as bad as some of us think it might be, and it's coming out at the end of this month. Will there be a narrative about more instances of review bombing on review aggregator sites, but this time will the blame be placed on sexist trolls? Personally, I can't wait to see what happens. Grab the popcorn, sit back, and let's see. Take care. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.